Here we are. All right, let's do this. Mondays with Molly. We're talking about sleep and daylight savings time and circadian rhythms and how to wake up feeling great. So, I was reflecting on, I'm curious if anyone here lives in a place that doesn't participate in daylight savings times, because I know a lot of people don't. And I've always thought the concept is really interesting. But I know a lot of you are here in the States and here in the US on last night, Sunday morning at 2 a.m. or something. Arizona doesn't do daylight savings. That's right. Okay, well, maybe you won't be feeling this, but these sleep tips will be general for sure. Whether or not you lost an hour of sleep yesterday and your body clock is adjusting to waking up and sleeping at a new time, these tips will be hopefully helpful. I'm going to be sharing 3 sleep tips and how to regulate your sleep cycle. So I hope that's helpful for you guys. So let's just start by, well, those of you that are here right now, tell me, what are your issues with sleep? Like, do you have trouble falling asleep? Do you have trouble staying asleep? What feels hard with sleep? And you guys can chime in as I'm sharing too, as I go through some of this. But I want to talk about the circadian rhythm. So if you've been tuning in for all of our Mondays with Molly, Rhonda, I think you've been here for all of them. So you know I talked previously when I talked about gut health and why your gut microbiome is so important. One of the things I mentioned is that it regulates our circadian rhythm. So a lot of our neurotransmitters are made in our gut, and those neurotransmitters regulate our circadian rhythm. And I mentioned how a lot of that has to do with our sleep cycle. But let's just talk about what your circadian rhythm is. So your hypothalamus is a part of your brain that has lots of very important functions, but one of them, it works as like think of your circadian rhythm as your body's clock, your internal clock. Hannah and Savannah, hi guys, welcome. So your circadian rhythm, let's just think of it as your body's clock, your body clock, okay? So your hypothalamus works to regulate this system. So your body, just like our days, operates on a 24-hour cycle. So think of your hypothalamus and your circadian rhythm. They modulate some really important functions. Obviously, they modulate sleep. We talk about the sleep cycle, and we're going to get to that. But it's important to note, too, it regulates a lot of other important functions, too. So a lot of your neurotransmitters and hormones rise and fall throughout your circadian rhythm throughout the day. And even things like your body, your stomach releasing certain stomach enzymes to break down proteins because it's expecting you to eat at the same time each day. Like, these things are regulated by your circadian rhythm. So it's not just sleep. It's so much more than sleep. But today we're mostly going to talk about sleep. But know that there's a lot going on here. When we talk about hormone cycles, men only experience this 24-hour daily hormone cycle. Of course, like as men age, some of their hormones change, but not the way that women do on this of course, we have a 24-hour circadian rhythm cycle, but we also have our 28-day monthly menstrual cycle where our hormones are fluctuating as well. So it's really interesting how men and women both have this circadian rhythm and this hormone fluctuation, but women are so much more complex, right? So your hypothalamus in your brain is what regulates this. So like I said, it regulates a lot more than just your sleep cycle, but let's focus on sleep today. So that's what, hopefully that makes sense. Your circadian rhythm, and let's say there's a lot of things that affect your circadian rhythm, and there's a lot of functions, or I'm not even going to get into the detail of how this works. So for example, your cortisol spikes when you first wake up because it's telling your body to get up. And then it's supposed to be dropping before, typically a lot of us have a spike in the afternoon, later in the day, and then it's supposed to be dropping before bed. So cortisol is an important part of that. Melatonin, a lot of people reference melatonin as, they think of melatonin as a sleep aid. And it is because it's natural. Our bodies naturally produce melatonin before bed, and that helps us fall asleep. So that's why a lot of times if you're taking like sleep aids or even all natural sleep supplements, they often have melatonin because melatonin helps us get sleepy and fall asleep. It's part of that circadian cycle. So I'm not even going to get into too much detail about that today. I'm just going to give you some tips on how to work with your internal body clock, especially in reference this week to daylight savings times. Like I said, some of y'all here maybe didn't lose an hour of sleep on Sunday, but if you did, or if you're just trying to adjust your sleep schedule, like if you want to start waking up earlier in the morning, these same tips will apply. So tip number 1 is to get outside in the sun as soon as possible every morning. Have you guys heard that? Have you heard people like tell you, get out, see the sun, be out there in the morning? So exposure to sunlight is one of the most important regulators of our circadian rhythm. The sun helps our body to modulate where we are at in this circadian cycle. So exposure to sunlight is one of the greatest regulators. If we can tell our body that the sun is rising, that's one of the best ways we can help it modulate what's happening. And then everything else falls into place so much easier. Everywhere else down the rest of the cycle, it helps as well. It's not just that first like rising in the morning. But that's why if you think about when you travel, like of course if you travel halfway around the world, like if we fly from here, I'm in Texas, if we fly over to Europe and we're shifting 8 to 10 hours, that is a huge shock to our body system, right? Like our 24-hour cycle is now messed up. But one of the best things you can do when you travel is make sure that you are, especially like when you're supposed to be waking up, when the sun is rising in the morning, getting outside. Like don't just sleep away in your hotel room, get outside. It's what helps your body go, okay, this is morning time now, and it helps you adjust and like reset your cycle. So one of the best things you can do for daylight savings time or just for trying to wake up earlier is to get outside as soon as you can, as soon as the sun is rising. So this is a little more complex. If you're a crazy person like me and you wake up way before the sun rises, my preference would of course be to wake up with the sunrise. Like that's what our bodies are made to do. I would love to like open my eyes and see some light streaming into my bedroom. It's not really how it goes because I wake up early enough that it's way before when the sun is rising. But if you can, get outside. And a couple things to note here. Sitting inside your house with the sun coming in your window is not the same. Nor is just like driving to work with seeing the sun. It's not the same. Your eyes need to really take in that sunlight. So as much as you can, get outside. So if that means like sitting outside in your backyard while you sip your morning cup of coffee or read your morning devotional or do your morning affirmations, if you can do that outside, great. This is one of the reasons I love morning movement outside so much. I love going on morning runs. Kasia and I run together at least once a week, like during the week. And I love it because typically we're leaving while it's still a little bit dark. Of course, now it's going to be way worse. This is like, most people love daylight savings time in the spring because we gain an extra hour of light at night, which I do enjoy. But I actually hate it because it makes morning so much harder when you're someone who already wakes up like way before the sun. But I love when we go on runs when it's like the sun is just starting to come out and we get to watch the sunrise and it's really like helping regulate. So this morning I took Gunner for a walk. We went on a little stroll. It wasn't even a long walk. We walked for like, I don't know, probably not even a mile, but just a little stroll around our neighborhood. And I was outside while the sun was rising and I was taking that in. And I know that is really going to help me reset now my new rhythm. So tip number 1 is to see the sun in the morning as soon as you can, especially as close to sunrise as you can is great. Sometimes that's just not super realistic, but get outside in the morning, see the sun. let your brain take in the sun rays. It feels good. It's good for you for so many reasons, but that will help your circadian rhythm reset. Also, the complete reverse of that is tip number 2, which is to reduce your light exposure before bed. So I'm about to drop a lot of really practical, valuable tips for you guys. Let's just preface here by saying I wake up at 5:30 every morning. I used to wake up at 4:30 every morning for 3 years straight when I worked my normal 9 to 5. I would wake up at 4:30 every morning, and part of that is going to bed at 8:30 every night. So let's just say I am exceptionally skilled at going to bed well. And so much of that has to do with these rhythms that I've built into my evening routine, into my wind down routine, to tell my body to start to shut down. So the reverse of seeing the sun in the morning is reducing your light exposure at night and telling your body like, hey, it's time to start powering down. So obviously a lot of people, these are like a hype thing, is blue light blockers. These are actually blue light blocker glasses. You can get them on Amazon. There's like 1,000 different styles. These were like $12 or something, I'm sure. And they help to, a part of the reason you see so much reflection in them is because they're reflecting blue light. So blue light is what we get from our devices, from our technology. And it's not natural. It really feels like daylight to our brains. And so even if you're sitting in the dark, if you're on your phone and on your laptop, you are getting exposure to this light and your brain is perceiving it as daytime. And so I'm sure this is not the first time you're hearing someone tell you in order to sleep better, you should stop looking at your phone at least an hour before bed. Like, I'm sure you've heard that from people other than me, but I'm going to tell you it's true and actually give you some tips here. So blue light blockers are great. Yes. I actually don't wear them at night. I wear them while I'm on my computer, like all day up here in my office. I don't wear them at night because I wear contacts. I wear these over my contacts. I am blind as a bat. And so at night, I take my contacts out and I wear my normal glasses. And so I can't wear these on top of them. Although I literally have done that before and it looks really silly. But I've done it when I've been desperate, when I'm working on my laptop. So you can get blue light blockers. But I will say something I've noticed just anecdotally, and some research points to this and it kind of makes sense, but just something to think about. I notice I am so sensitive to my phone and to my laptop, or like my desktop, my computer. But I'm not that sensitive to the TV. So I can, and in fact do, watch Netflix with my husband most nights before bed. And that doesn't seem to mess up with my sleep as much as if I'm not kidding, if I pick up my phone and I scroll on it or do something on it for even just a few minutes, when I'm in my wind down routine, I absolutely notice a struggle in falling asleep. So you've heard me share this from like 1,000 different directions. I am such a fan of putting our technology away at night. I really am. I don't sleep with my phone in the bedroom. I put it in another room by like 7 p.m. So here's another tip. Our phones and our technology has so many tools built into it that you can use. So one of them is the ability to have your screen start to get warmer. You can decide when it is. You can set it to be like sunset to sunrise, or you can manually do it. I think I have mine going on like super early, like 6 to start to get warmer. And so that's something that really, really helps. It's not enough. You can, on my laptop, I had to download a separate like application to do this for me. I do have a blog post I could share with you guys later that has a bunch of these tips in it. So if you want to actually go and implement some of these things, more of the details are there, and I'll share that for you later. So using some of these built-in technologies to warm up your screens, if you're going to be on them, you can at least reduce the blue light that you're getting from them. It looks a little bit wonky, but unless the only times that's an issue for me is if I'm like actually editing photos or doing design something where I need to actually be seeing color really well. So those are things you can do. I also have my, like all of my applications, notifications, calls, all of that start to shut down. For me, it's at 7 p.m., which I know for a lot of people probably sounds so early. But that's something that helps me. So my phone goes away, my laptop goes away, and I can still watch TV, but, I know you've probably heard this. So I want to talk to you about something that maybe you haven't really thought about or not as many people talk about, which is literally the lights that I use in our home, in our room, like actual lighting. So let's not even talk technology here, like actual lighting. Casual jokes, you guys know we've renovated 6 houses. We've renovated this house that we live in. We pay a decent amount of money to put in like beautiful, nice, flush can lights. And I never, ever turn them on. I hate overhead lighting. I am so sensitive to it because 99% of overhead lighting is really harsh, and it's just like not nice on our eyes. So think about like if you turn on the lights in your kitchen or in your bedroom, even like in our bedroom, we have a fan that has a light in it as our overhead light. I like never turn it on. I have it set where the fan will come on and the light won't come on. The light makes me want to throw up. I'm just so sensitive to it. But think about like how pleasant candlelight or even lamplight is. It's because it's like warmed up and diffused. So as early as the sun starts setting, we don't have overhead lighting on in our house, and I really only rely on lamplight. So we have lamps throughout our house. So let's just talk I'll give you like actual practical examples of what this looks like in our bedroom. Or even in our kitchen. I have a lamp in the corner of our little breakfast nook. It's not super bright, but it's bright enough. Unless I'm like still cooking in the kitchen or like really doing dishes and stuff, that's all I need if I'm just like making tea or something. So I have that lamp on, and I don't have the overhead lighting on. Really anywhere else do we have any lights on in our house? In our bedroom. So I mentioned our overhead fan light, that's never on. So we have 2 lamps on both of our nightstands on either side of the bed. And then I also have a pink Himalayan sea salt lamp. If you don't have one, you should get one. They're amazing. So we have 3 lamps. And at the beginning of the night, like before it's even dark out, I have all 3 lamps on. And slowly throughout the night, I start turning lights down and off. So think like as we're making dinner, like after the sun is set and I've changed into my pajamas, taken my makeup off, like I'm slowly, that's a whole other thing, is like transitioning, cueing your body, like, okay, it's time to start like shutting the day off and winding down. So many ways that I do this. But let's just talk lighting here. I will turn one of the bedside lamps off. So we'll have one lamp and the pink salt lamp on. And then I should have brought my salt lamp up to show you guys. Do you guys know what a pink salt lamp is? They're amazing. It's literally a bulb, like just a light bulb that's on a wire or a cord. That was the word I was looking for. And then it's this big hunk of pink Himalayan sea salt that's hollowed out on the inside. And then they put this like wooden base on it so it can sit on your table. And it's hollowed out on the inside, and you just stick the lamp up in it, and then the light bulb. And the light bulb diffuses light. And so it feels like candlelight. That's how I describe it. It really feels like candlelight. You know how like when you go to a romantic dinner, they've got soft candlelight on and it feels warm and cozy and romantic, or you're sitting by the fire. I mean, these things are so obvious, but we know, like, think about it. Like the coziness of those light, it's because it's diffused and it's part of like what's telling our brains to shut down. Think about this all the way back to Well, we don't even have to go all the way back to the caveman days. It wasn't even that long ago that electricity was introduced into the world, where we have the ability to have lighting on after the sun is set. But before that, the only light we had after the sun was set was fire. It was like candles and fire. And so that's part of it. It's built into our brains to know that those things mean we start to shut down. But anyways, so first one lamp goes off, then another lamp goes off. And then at night, when I get in bed, typically like after we've eaten dinner, after we've cleaned up the kitchen, oftentimes we've watched some Netflix, when we actually go to bed, which for me is literally like 8:30 p.m., I read on my Kindle. This is another thing, if you guys heard me in my whole Kindle saga, I was so resistant to getting a Kindle because I love touching and holding and reading paper, and I love being able to like underline and highlight. Anyways, and a huge reason was because I didn't want to be reading on a screen and looking at screens at night. And it's very much the opposite. I love my Kindle because it allows me to read better at night. So part of that is because, first of all, I have my Kindle on with my dark mode, which means instead of Kindles can look like, if you guys, does anyone have a Kindle? Do you know what I'm talking about? Their normal setting is like, it looks like paper. We call it paper white. The white background with the black text, and it looks like a normal piece of paper. The reason it's very different from a normal screen is it's not full screen. It's just like backlit. And so it's different. But I actually use the dark mode where the background is black and the text is white, and I have it on really low brightness. But I notice one of the reasons I love it is it allows me, if I'm looking at a normal book, I have to have like a relatively bright lamp on next to me, versus when I'm reading my Kindle, I can have no light on, although I don't do that. So I love my pink salt lamp because it feels like candlelight, and one of the things I love about it is it has this built-in dimmer on it. So it's got a little turn dial, and that's how you turn it on and off. But that means I can literally dim it as I'm reading. So I'm not kidding you, as I'm sleeping in bed and reading my Kindle, which honestly typically happens for like 5 minutes before I start to conk out. But I know it's because I do all this so well, and I'm so primed and ready for sleep. But I literally start, as I'm reading, every few minutes, I will turn the dial on my salt lamp down. So it's slowly getting darker and darker and darker. And that's literally cueing my brain like, okay, we're winding down. And again, I seriously often only do this for a few minutes before I'm like out. But try that. You also, before I had my salt lamp with the dimmer on it, you can buy, and these are all things I can share for you guys later if you want it, let me know. But I did previously buy a dimmer, and I know you can get dimmable light switches. You can get like fancy automated plugs where you like plug your device into it, and then you can control when it shuts down and things dim and all that, which is cool. But a super cheap option is just to buy a dimmer on Amazon. I think it was like $10 or something, but it's like just a hardwired dimmer where it's got a dial on it. And I used to plug this into my lamp next to my bed. And so before I had the salt lamp, we had 2 lamps on our bed, and my lamp would be the last one to go off. And again, that one I would slowly dim as I was reading. Going back, before I had my Kindle, I needed a lot more brightness next to me to actually be able to read my book, whereas now I don't need as much. So the salt lamp, it's pretty dark. It's pretty dark, but I love it because that's priming me for bed. So a funny anecdote here is, yes, I go to bed at 8:30 most nights. And the exception to that is if I'm ever like at a party or at a wedding or out with friends or whatever, where I'm not in bed at 8:30. It's funny because people will say to me like, Molly, I can't believe you're still awake right now. And sometimes it used to be I would just be like gone and out and I'm done. But I notice sometimes I can actually feel great. Like I'll be out with people and I'll look down and it's 10 p.m. and I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize it was this late. I'm normally asleep an hour and a half ago, let alone like winding my body down hours before that. And I know that it's because I've removed all of these cues to my brain to start to shut down. Like, yes, part of it is because of my circadian rhythm, and I'm on a cycle and I wake up early, and so it's not hard for me to go to bed at 8:30, but a huge part of it is because I intentionally have these wind down routines and these cues to my brain to start to slow down. So if that's any encouragement to you, because if a lot of times people are like, I have no idea how you go to bed that early and wake up that early. I could never do that. I don't get sleepy until midnight or whatever. That's just because it's what you're currently doing. That's just because that's the circadian rhythm you're on. You 1,000% can adjust your cycle, your sleep cycle. And all these tips are cues you can do to help regulate that. So keep that in mind. So tip number 1 was to get outside and in the sun as early as you can in the morning. And tip number 2 is to reduce your light exposure at night before bed. But tip number 3, this is really simple, but it's so true, especially in relation to daylight savings, but also to anyone who is inspired to try to get up earlier and adjust their morning routine to waking up earlier. Tip number 3 is just to be gentle on yourself. This morning, the first day after daylight savings time, I didn't set an alarm. Like normally Mondays, I wake up extra early. I have a more intense workout. I love the energy I come into Mondays with, and I love my Monday routine. Heidi says yes to the 8:30 bedtime club. I know I'm not the only one, and it's the best. They say any hour of sleep that you get before midnight counts as the same as 2 hours you would get after. So for example, if you sleep 8 hours, but if you sleep from 11 to 7 versus 9 to 5, the person who sleeps 9 to 5 is getting way higher quality sleep and more restful sleep, because that's like the cycle our body should be on. So if that's any motivation for you. But anyways, be gentle with yourself. So this morning I didn't set an alarm. I intentionally said, okay, like I'm not going to come into this Monday with my alarm and see what my body needs and just let it sleep. And again, normally I wake up at 5:30, which means if I had woken up at 5:30, my body would have thought it was 4:30 because we lost an hour yesterday, right? Am I saying this right? Yeah. So I actually slept until 7:17. That's when my body woke up this morning, which normally my body thought was 6:17. So that not only meant that I needed the sleep, but I actually needed a little extra sleep, which makes sense, just what my life has been looking like. I knew I probably needed it, which is why I didn't set an alarm. I let myself sleep, and I'm letting myself adjust. I think tomorrow I might do the same, and then starting Wednesday, I might set my alarm for 6 instead of 5:30, and then I'll just like slowly adjust. This is one of the tips I give I have a blog post. It's one of my most popular blog posts I wrote years ago on how I wake up at 4:30 in the morning. And one of the tips I give in there is to start slow. Like if you are a person who wakes up barely rolls out of bed at 7:30 every morning, and you're inspired to start waking up at 5:30 and have a morning routine, amazing. I'm so excited for you. Do it. I couldn't recommend it enough. But don't just do it overnight. Like don't just set your alarm for 2 hours earlier than you normally wake up and expect your body to be okay with it. It's going to suck. Your body's not going to be okay with it. You're not going to feel good doing it. You have to slowly shift your circadian rhythm. So one of the tips I give in this blog post is to do it in 10 to 15 minute increments. Like don't just do 2 hour shifts overnight. So even though daylight savings time is only 1 hour adjustment, I don't have kids, but I know if there are mamas here, all my mama friends just like dread daylight savings because kids don't know. They don't know to look at the clock. They just know what their bodies do, and daylight savings wreaks havoc on kids, right? Because they don't know any different the way that we do. We just try to tell our brain like, okay, well, we lost an hour, like let's just stay on the same schedule. And it doesn't work that way. Our bodies have to adjust. And so just keep that in mind. Be gentle on yourself. Don't expect your body to make up hour chunks or multiple hours overnight. It takes some time. Let your body do it the right way instead of just like forcing it to wake up with a bunch of coffee this morning, which, be honest with me, how many of you had to reach for extra coffee this morning? It's okay, but just keep that in mind. Like, if you actually want sustainable changes in your sleep cycle, that's something you're gonna want to do. So I hope those are helpful. Get out in the sun in the morning, reduce your light exposure before bed, and just be gentle with yourself. Slowly transition, have a goal, have something to work towards, but don't expect it to happen overnight. So I hope that was helpful. If you like this, like I mentioned a few times, I do have multiple blog posts that go into more detail on some of these tips, some of those really practical technology tools. I'm realizing I probably should be able to link for you guys some of these things I talked about, like my salt lamp with the dimmer and the dimmer I add to my lamps and stuff. So if y'all are interested in that, let me know. And then, those blog posts I can link for you. And if you like this, I would love to work on a more in-depth resource for this process. Everything from morning routines, wake up times, adjusting our body clocks, winding down at night, all of this stuff. Rhythms are so important for our bodies. And when I really prioritized having rhythms in my day, in my mornings and my evenings, way more than just the stuff I talked about here, but these are examples of them. It's wild what a difference it makes on every aspect of our health, because our bodies, we were created to live in rhythm. We were created to rise and fall with the sun. That's how God knit us together. That's why he gave us sunrise and sunset. We're supposed to rest. Like, when I really started to live in the rhythms my body was made for, I found like fruit and joy and positive outcomes in so many different areas. So if you guys are interested in more detail on this, I would love to put together a really like hefty, truly life-changing, action-taking kind of resource. So let me know. Give me some feedback. What do you want? What would be helpful? What are your problem areas? What resources do you feel like you need to affect these kinds of change? I'd love to work on that for y'all. So there you go. Too long here on Mondays with Mollie. Got started with a little hiccup there, but glad to have you guys here. Let me know what other help you want in this area. Be gentle on yourself. Be gentle on yourself. If today feels hard, it probably will. Give yourself a little extra rest and your body will catch up faster than you know. All right, I hope you'll have the best Monday and the best week.